Before you sign with another marketing agency, you need to ask these four questions. A builder we spoke to spent $45,000 over 18 months and got one lead back. If he knew these questions, he would have saved every cent. My name's Robert Takei. I'm the co-founder of two agencies, and we help people in the construction space generate leads, content, and grow their business. And the other day, I spoke with a residential builder based in Melbourne. He focuses on, custom homes and duplexes and knockdown rebuilds. And he'd been working with an agency for well over 18 months. He'd spent close to $50,000 with them. He was doing SEO. He'd reached out and he said, "Hey, I need leads and I want to talk about social media." So I said, "Cool, not a problem." And we sat down and we had a chat. And one thing we really like to do when we work with people is we try to understand the goal. Because people for a long time would come to me and be like, "Hey, I need a video." We would do the video for them. And then they'd be like, "It didn't work." And I'd be like, "Well, what were you trying to do?" And they'd be like, "Well, I wanted more leads." It's like, well, a video is not going to be the thing that gets you more leads. You had the wrong approach. A video is an asset. It's a piece of content. You need to understand how we get leads. And I've got a video that explains exactly how we get leads. I'll link it in the description. But for this particular client, he came to us and said, "I want to do social media." And we said, "Okay, cool. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing." And I always like to understand the full depth of things. I actually like to understand a little bit about the business. We dive into it, and long story short, he comes back and says, like, the goal is leads. And I was like, "Okay, so what else are you doing?" And he tells me he's been doing SEO, but it's not working, so he's going to stop. So I say, "Okay, cool. Let's dive into this a little bit," right? And we dive in and we find that his best keyword were in position 21. So he was being found on page 3 of Google where no one is found. People go to page 3 to die, right? He had one lead in 18 months and he was getting all these reports of, full activity metrics, and they kept telling him it's getting better month on month, but he had zero results. And then he was also paying someone else on the side, $300 to $400 a month just to manage his Google business profile. This story is way too common. Builders, trades choose agencies based on price or promises. They either promise the world something they can't deliver, or they were the cheapest option and they weren't equipped to deliver. So here's the 4 things, if you're looking at hiring an agency, that you could ask them that will actually help you make sure you don't waste $50,000 for one lead that doesn't convert. Okay, the first thing is you want to ask proof with numbers. So if I'm going to work with someone else, I want to know that what they are saying can be done. Bring me a campaign or 2 or 3 from the last 90 days where I can see your total spend or total traffic or what you've done, what's the actual work that's being carried out over the last 90 days. I want to see what's recent, right? Because they'll go and show you a campaign that worked, 18 months ago. And it's like, this doesn't work anymore. The game changes constantly. And it's like, what are you doing now to make sure you stay ahead? Number 2, ask how they measure success, right? If they sit there talking about impressions and reach and, all these vanity metrics, you're in for trouble. I tell people all the time, the only thing that matters, is how many jobs you win. That's the only thing that matters. Everything else, your cost per lead, all that other jazz is important to track, but it's irrelevant. Let me give you an example that explains this. Let's say person A is getting $20 leads and person B is getting $50 leads. Person A might have to work with 20 leads to close one, meaning they need to spend $400 before they get their first sale. Person B might close 1 in 3, so they spend $150 to get one sale, right? But if you looked at it from cost per lead only, you might say, cool, but they're getting $20 leads. And it's like, but that's not the actual metric that matters. This person pays $150 to get a job. This person paid $400, right? This person spent less time on the phone. This person spent more time on the phone. This person went through less shit. This person had to go through more shit to get the jobs. So the only numbers you want to focus on is how many leads am I getting? And of those leads, how many turn into jobs, right? Because that's going to measure the quality of the lead and how many jobs you actually won. They're the 2 most important things. Everything else, important to track, but you can get 1,000 leads. And if you get no jobs, that's the equivalent of someone who has no leads. You both got the same result at the end. Number 3, ask what they won't do. Good agencies have a really clear scope of what's included. They don't just say, we're doing your SEO. They actually tell you what's included. They say, we do this many backlinks. They say, we do this many of this. Good agencies that run your social ads will tell you, we'll create this many campaigns, or we have unlimited creative refresh. And if they understand the scope of works really well, you can ask them what they won't do, and they should be able to answer that very, very easily. If they say yes to everything, they're almost going to deliver nothing. A good agency will draw the line and say, that's not included in the scope. Okay. If they don't do that and they're just like, yeah, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that. They don't understand scope creep. They're inexperienced and they're probably just going to, telling you what you want to hear to win the job. That's the reality. And number 4, you need to ask if they track every lead source, okay? Meaning, if they can't tell you where every lead came from, you're flying completely blind. You need to understand everything about everything you do. You need to have the correct tracking setup. If you want to do this properly and you're driving traffic from multiple different channels, you need to have the right UTM tracking setup. You need to have different tracking phone numbers set up. So the person who comes through SEO is different to the person who comes through direct traffic, who is different to the person who comes through Google ads. And they can all see a different phone number. Sounds wild, I know, but it's not that hard to set up. A good agency will set this up for you as part of the campaign. You may have to pay for the phone numbers, but $12, $14, $20 a month is the least of your worries if you're at this point where you're investing in advertising in your business. Okay. You should have these things set up properly so that you can track each and every individual, where they come from, how they're finding you, and so forth. Because then you can lean into what works, right? Data tells a story. The numbers don't lie. Work out which one's giving you the best return, and then you can focus what you're doing all towards that one thing until you've maximized, until the returns start to diminish, right? And then you're like, okay, we're kind of maximizing this channel. How do we now maximize this next channel? Right? That's how the game is played. That's how you successfully market online. So you want to run these 4 questions before you sign with any agency. It takes you 15 minutes to go through them. Right agencies will pass 4 without any hesitation. I'm going to make more videos like this showing you exactly what we do on the back end, the things you can do to make sure that you get the most out of your marketing, how to increase your sales, how to grow your business in every way that I've learned over the years of working directly with people in the construction space. We've got an online community where we share videos like this and more, and we show you real marketing strategies that work for people in the construction space. No fluff, nothing to sell you, just things that work. What's working right now? AI, sales, marketing, growing your business. If that's of interest, the link's in the description. And if you message us in there, I personally reply to all the people that message me directly. I'll try and help you with everything we can to grow your business. So if that's of interest, click the link below, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.